Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rassinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. And we're going into the breach Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Joe and I are back in action after a little bit of a hiatus. Life gets in the way. What are you going to do? I mean, we're working guys. We're trying to slog our way through life, trying to get ourselves and our families into heaven as best we can. So we had at least the two of us together on the show. I had to take a little bit of a break, but we're back. Conversations are going to be consistently Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be showing you a lot of clips. We don't have any today. We just have a few topics we'd like to talk to you about. The chat room is open. So you could comment. Please, if you're watching this video, help us out. Like, subscribe, share. Everybody asks you to do that. We're asking you to do it too. So whether it's Twitter, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, please help us out and share this video. So let's go. There's a lot to talk about. So we're going to jump right in. So Joe Rassinello, why don't you get us started on a couple of topics you wanted to discuss? Wait.
Well, yeah, okay.
Let me take that back 1 second. Am I wrong, and I don't know if this is a curveball for you? Did I read something about Trudeau and tampons going up north to Canada? Something outrageous, or am I losing my mind, or am I too old and my hearing and my eyesight's going?
Well, I think Justin has lost his mind. Free tampons and menstrual pads now required in government-sponsored or government-controlled men's rooms. Federal.
Wait, say that. So a government, like a park,
yeah,
or like
there you go.
A men's room's got to have what? Tampons and menstrual products
inside the bathroom.
Okay.
I mean,
more insanity.
This is the thing that boggles my mind. I'm all for being kind to people. Listen, we have to be kind. Have to be. With that said, this defies science. Men don't have periods. They don't have periods. This is insane. It's insane. We have gone to a place where I can't wrap my hands around things anymore. You have people, I'm gonna flip it back to America. Presidents of Ivy League colleges who will not acknowledge hate speech that basically is saying that Jews should be slaughtered. Sorry, guys, you're off base.
And you would think that, Joe, that was pretty easy.
Joe,
it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what your opinion is of our Jewish friends. But the fact is, to say that if someone says, you know what, Jews really need a good genocide.
Joe,
you don't condemn that.
That is insane. That is insane. I don't care.
If I call him or her, if one of those people going into Trudeau's bathrooms up in Canada, is that one of those men going in there, okay, to buy a tampon, if I call him a him instead of a her, that's hate speech. You say all Jews must die or we should commit you won't condemn the statement about condemning genocide against the Jews. Listen, like I said, I don't really care what your opinion is of Israel or anything else. You can't. That one's easy.
It is. But this is the thing. It's politics. It's insincere. If you ask me, I don't buy that people believe this. When they go home to their wife or their husband, you're going to tell me you actually believe this? Because if you do, you're sick. You're sick. Something's wrong. And Joe, I'll be honest with you. It scares me because the world is so unmoored. This is a basic. You could live in a cave and you know that men don't menstruate. Can't do it.
Right.
And you're actually going to go along. And this is the problem with our society. We go along to get along. Why? Because we want to get paid. Do you know what you're doing to your children by going along to get along? If you don't form your children properly, they'll be destroyed. You can leave them $50 million. They'll piss it away. Listen, and I'm not perfect. I'm not going to make myself out to be perfect because I'm not. But what I am saying is true. You cannot build a society on these insane ideas. Men menstruate. We have a Supreme Court justice. Nothing against you, lady. You're a million times smarter than me. You either are sick in the head that you can't say that a woman's a woman, or frankly, you're a fraud. One of the two. One of the two.
Well, the thing is this, at the very least, here's one thing that I would, and again, remember, she has protective coding as far as the left is concerned, because she's black, like our wives are black. Okay. She's
My
black.
wife knows
So,
what a woman is. She's had 5 kids.
that's right. That's right. That's right. My wife knows what a woman is, just like yours. They're sisters. Ketanji Brown Jackson, if you were to say that, if you say, you know what, you're a fraud, because you know damn well what a woman is, and you're giving the political answer, which is, I'm not a biologist. You don't need to be a biologist to know what a woman is. That's the point, Ketanji. That's the point. You don't need to know. And so, why are we arguing these points? Like, let's bring it back to Trudeau. All right, let me not be cruel. Trudeau. Okay, I know I did notice though some people call him, I guess, Trudeau. But what he's doing in Canada, he's doing what they're doing here in America, which is they're trying to force you to acknowledge it. Real men should go into any one of those men's rooms that's in a public park and rip out that tampon machine and throw it into the lake in the park. That's what they should do. They should get a crowbar. They should pull it off the wall. They should go throw it in the lake and let them go and put that back up. Go to jail for defacing public property. Because guess what? That's what's got to happen. Just tell people like this, you know what? There's no need for tampons in the men's room there, Justin. None whatsoever. Thank you.
How do you explain that to a child? How, without in your conscience thinking you're not misleading them? I'm not talking about being mean. All people deserve respect, but giving someone respect does not validate lying. It doesn't.
No.
You're not helping a generation of people to lie to them. You're simply not. Yet, this is what we do. This is what's going on. These are the smartest, quote unquote, people in the room that do it too.
Right.
It is, frankly, Joe, it's disturbing.
Well, here's the thing. No matter how smart they think they are, the reason why they get away with it, Joe, is because they're very good at bullying people, and people are more than willing to be bullied. Now, let me bring up a more popular person, Matt Walsh, okay? One of the things I thought he did in that movie, What is a Woman? Did you see it, by the way?
I have not. I have not.
It's some parts of it are nauseating, not because of Matt Walsh, but the people he's actually interviewing. These people are Joe. Again, like you always like to say, they have the degrees on the wall. These people are morons. There's no other way to put it, or they're evil, one or both. Whatever. But one of the things he did that I think was really smart on his part is he had a portion of the movie where he went to Africa. And he went to an African tribe, all right? And he gathered the men together with a translator, and there was an elder of the tribe with them. And Matt was asking the translator, who's younger, and there was younger guys, and then there was the older guy, these same questions that you're asking. So, can a man be a woman? Can a woman be a man? The elder had no concept of what he was talking about, if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't have any concept of it.
No, but the thing is this. The other is basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, what are you talking about? How could that be? Men are men and women are women. See, he did it smart because all the supposed anti-racists in America, Joe, all the supposed liberal, enlightened people in America, all the politically correct people, do you know what they say about that elder in that tribe behind closed doors? Right? The most vile, disgusting, racist things probably come out of their mouth. The top of that list would be, oh, well, they're just ignorant or they're just stupid. Okay. And that's their attitude. And they bully people into actually saying, well, maybe we should put the tampon machine in the men's room in the park just in case. In case of what? Guy's not going to start menstruating. He ain't going to need it. Don't worry about it. Throw it in the lake.
And here's another thing. If you are a man and you permit a doctor to do something to you, whether it's through surgery or you take medication where you can, quote unquote, menstruate, the likelihood that you are going to live a full and healthy life is very slim. In fact, It's slim to none. And that's not my opinion. That's science. That's real science. We are permitting people to destroy themselves. They're destroying themselves. And
Right.
we permit children to do it. Do
Right.
you know in the United States of America, if you live in, say, Kansas, and you're 16 years old and you're a girl, you could take a bus, a Greyhound bus, and go to California and have surgery done to you without your parents' permission.
Yep.
That's legal. Do you know in the state of New Jersey, in a public school, you can't give an aspirin to a child without permission? An aspirin. And you're going to say in the state of California, you can mutilate a child who's 16 forever. And this is reality?
Right.
Sorry.
Well, here's
Call
one
me
thing.
whatever you want. Call me stupid. Call me this. Call me deplorable. I know one thing. That's sick.
Well, the
That's
thing is,
immoral.
Joe, one of the things that we've seen, if you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, Real Truth News on Rumble with Joe and Joe, wherever you're watching this, please help us out. Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, share it all around. If you would. Joe, we have an example. One of the things is this. Hi, Sherry. Happy New Year to you. And we just want a quick acknowledgement. Some of our friends, Barbarism, Pelosi's Hammer is in the chat room. We got Kim Wright. We got Yolanda, Honest John. Welcome all. Please share the video. Share it all over the place. Here's one thing, Joe. We know from experience. See, what would a normal father do? Now, Joe, I want to be clear. I'm giving you a hypothetical. I'm not suggesting anybody do this, okay? Let's say I had a 16-year-old daughter. Let me use me as an example, okay? Because I'm going somewhere with this. We're dealing with rabid, disgusting, evil, hard Marxists. That's what we're dealing with. So let's say my 16-year-old gets on that bus, okay, and I live in Kansas, goes to California. You do realize that my initial emotional reaction is going to want to wring the neck of the person who performed that surgery. Am I right? You agree that would be a natural reaction?
Joe, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you my natural reaction. I just feel powerless. Like when I see what's going on, I have 5 kids. I pay taxes. I don't hurt anybody. And when I see this, that you are basically supposed to be an adult and you are supposed to guide a child to a healthy lifestyle. Healthy.
Right.
Do you know that transgender individuals don't make it to 40?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's again, not a dogmatic statement. That's a scientific reality. It's not a healthy lifestyle. And you're going to allow that as a father. Because I'll be honest with you, dude. Kids make stupid mistakes. I made stupid mistakes.
Well, look at what's her name? Chloe Cole, right? Who, if she's watching, Chloe, I reached out to you on Twitter. Get back to us. We want you to come on the show. Look at her. Does the LGP-LMNOPQRSTUV community, do they care about her? Now that she has come out and she's detransitioned and she said that those doctors, they didn't counsel me the way they should. They didn't tell me what I needed to know. I was 16 years old. I was not able to make that decision, and they went ahead and did it anyway. Now, I don't know where. I have not been reading the news on her. I don't know where her lawsuits are. I know she is suing. That would be a really big step. The other thing, Joey, is you said something interesting. I love your comments on it, okay? Getting back to my example, but then you mentioned if that was you said you don't hurt anybody. Joe, you don't hurt anybody. The point is, though, by the left and their friends in the media, what they say is if you don't go along to get along, you are hurting somebody. Now, I know you're not. You know you're not. All of the good people that are listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe know that you're not living your life trying to hurt anybody. You just want to speak the truth. Men are men, women are women. Transgenderism is BS. It needs to be eradicated. That's not a hateful statement. That's that's to me a loving statement. Because like you said, these people don't live very long. The point is, Joe, 2 things. Number one is the way they try to frame the argument is you are hurting somebody, number one. But real quick. Number two is, Joe, look at the nonviolent reaction of fathers. The one father went up in front of the Virginia school board, said, you hid the fact that my daughter was raped by a boy pretending to be a girl. Merrick Garland put him on the FBI terrorist watch list because he yelled at the school board.
Joe, it's just nuts. I can't, Joe. Like I said, I feel powerless, and I'm not.
Well, that's my point, because you used the word powerless. That's actually my point, because the bottom line is, if you can't go in front of the school board and yell at them, well, who the hell can you yell at? Okay.
Joe, I'll be honest with you. It's scary, and any person that thinks otherwise, frankly, isn't in reality. It should terrify you. It should terrify you. And it's sad. It is so, Joe, I swear. And I don't hate a soul. I watch people destroy themselves.
Yep.
I watch them. They're destroying themselves.
It's exactly what they're doing.
And this is not, I'm not condemning them to hell. I'm talking now. They're destroying themselves.
And if somebody said something to Chloe Cole, like you just said that to her and put a different idea in her head when she was 16, all right, you know what? She would love you for the rest of your life. You would be one of the most valuable people in the world to her, because you were the one that told her the truth. That's why, again, I always go back to social media, Joe, because the media obviously is in the tank. They're bought and paid for by the cultural Marxists, by the leftists. We know that they're controlled, okay? That's why I will always say one of their biggest fears, obviously free speech is a fear that they have, because the more you speak up about these things, not just Joe and Joe, so many people out there, hundreds and thousands of people that have podcasts and radio shows and are calling out this BS, okay? Keep calling it out. That's what upsets the left. They know that ultimately is what's going to defeat them. The more people have information, particularly young, confused kids, where the media, the mainstream media, doesn't have any control. And we know that what I just said is true, Joe Resinello, because look at the reaction to Elon Musk taking over Twitter, a relatively smaller, actually not relatively small, a much smaller social media company than Facebook, than YouTube, okay, and others. And Elon Musk bought them for $45 billion, $50 billion, nothing compared to Facebook, and they got all bent out of shape. Why? Because they know free speech platforms like X and Rumble are a threat to their narrative, threat to their control. And you know what happens, Joe? You start to not only feel less powerful, less powerless, you start to realize, no, you actually do have power, because you have the power to influence. And that's what they hate. Joe, I'm going to give you the last word on this topic.
Ultimately, honestly, people have to just look in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? And stop going along to get along. Stop it. Stop it. You don't have to have an education to know the answers to these topics. You don't.
Right.
Men don't menstruate. And frankly, if someone looks you in the face and says that, again, it's one of two things. They're either disturbed, or they're a fraud. Or they're a fraud and they're going along to get along too. Ultimately, that leads to a destroyed culture. You're destroying people, and you don't care for them. You simply don't. It's misplaced empathy. You're destroying them.
I always say that I think you're way too charitable, and maybe I should be more charitable when you say it's misplaced empathy. I think the people that are promoting this are just straight up evil, and I think they look in the mirror and they think, hey, listen, and it's not taking money out of my pocket. In fact, it might be putting money in my pocket to promote these things, and I really don't care. Anyway, that's a conversation we have. Go ahead, Joe.
Let's do Trump. Let's talk about Trump's Christmas message.
Well, here's the thing. Joe, I'm going to vote for Trump. If he's on the ballot, okay, I'm voting for him. In the primary here, I'm in Arizona. Most people know I moved out of New Jersey 2 years ago. New Jersey's a basket case. We know that. But here, if it's between Trump in the primary and Vivek, I'm still going back and forth. We'll talk about Vivek in a few minutes, okay? But let's stay on Trump. Probably going to vote for Trump. Okay, I will vote for Trump if of course he's the nominee. All right, but this is where I have to agree with some of my friends who are a little tired of Donald Trump. Where you want to say, look, Don, I know you're 3 steps ahead of the left. That's irrelevant. Okay, stop. You need to choose your words a little bit more carefully. There is no way, and again, Joe, there's going to be a lot of Christians, me included, okay, that are going to vote for Donald Trump if he's the nominee, the Republican nominee for president. You can't tell people to rot in hell on Christmas. You can't do that. I'm sorry. You're appealing to Christians, and one of the central messages of Jesus Christ was you have to pray for your enemies. Joe, I'm sorry. I don't care who thinks I'm being picky about Trump or whatever the case might be. You cannot tell your enemies to rot in hell. If you do mean that, okay, then I'm sorry. Then Donald, I'm going to say you better check your Christianity, because that one's essential, Joe Rassinello.
Joe, I'll be honest with you. Trump is a flawed man. There's no presidential candidate out there that's perfect, at least from a Catholic's perspective. I'll be honest with you. You got to basically weigh all issues, look at what's going on. To your point, he's just hurting himself. And this is one of the criticisms. Twitter helped him win. No question about it. He got around the mainstream media. Reagan got around the mainstream media, because the mainstream media, and I'll say this, and I've said this time and time again, is the enemy of the American people. I've changed my views since we've started this show with regard to this. The Republicans are not on your side either.
No, forget it.
Absolutely, positively not. There's select people in the government that are. We could disagree, but they're sincere.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans, I just call it the uniparty. They're a disaster, and the mainstream media, they all eat from the same trough because they all belong to the same country club. They're not for you. And when he makes a statement like this, ultimately, all it is he's feeding his enemies fodder. This is where like his people have to talk to him. If he even wants to listen, it's possible he's just hard-headed and that's just the way it is. But while Twitter was a tool for him to succeed, it's statements like this when you go on a litany of all the problems and then you basically end it with, may they all rot in hell. Merry Christmas. Don, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Just stop it.
Yo, listen, when he's got a bunch of evangelicals and Protestants and some Catholics in the Oval Office, and they're laying hands on him, okay, in a prayerful way, and they're praying for him. It's one thing. Like I said, a lot of people might think that Joe and Joe were picking you, but I'm sorry. That is central to Christ's message, and that's something that we're not going to just talk about politics here. No, Trump's got to back off a little bit, and I guarantee you he didn't listen to some people who probably told him, don't say rotten hell. Joe Rassinello, let me tell you something. I don't say this because I'm better than anybody, because heaven knows I'm not. I pray for, amongst other people, okay, when I pray the rosary, I pray for the conversion of the world and certain people by name. Joe Biden's one of them. Joe Biden, to me, is one of the most vile, disgusting, corrupt, evil individuals that I've seen in American politics in my lifetime. I won't deny that's what I see when I see him, but I pray for him. I don't pray that he rots in hell, okay? Jesus will make that determination. But the thing is, I, as a Christian, am said, and I mean it from my heart when I pray for his conversion. I do, okay? I really do. So it's not like just I'm saying the words, but I think he's a vile, disgusting person. But you have to pray for him, Don. You don't say at Christmas, moreover, okay? At Christmas time, you're saying, may they all rot in hell. Joe, I'm not buying it. And that turns me off to Trump, Joe. That turns me off 100%. To him.
And here's the thing. And this is where I think our country has to take a look at itself. We can agree to disagree. We can simply agree to disagree. Even on the tampon issue, we'll just disagree. I'm going to do everything I can to fight against that. I'm going to put my word into the public square. I am going to vote. I am going to use my influence. I am going to do everything in my power. I can't lay hands on you. I can't hurt you. And I should never say statements like that, because ultimately we have to build bridges of conversation again. We have to get to a point where we simply could say to people, listen, we just agree to disagree. Here's why. Let's have a conversation. I'm willing to engage in a conversation with you. No identity politics, facts. Let's have a conversation.
Joe,
But
go
they're
ahead.
not interested.
Joe, I got to cut you off. I only because of this. Only because of this. I don't like cutting you up, but I got to cut you off. Joe, I know that what you mean about the uniparty, but if there is one party that is open-minded to having conversations about many of these things, I believe it's the Republicans. Case in point, Riley Gaines was just up in front of Congress recently. Okay, now she's there to defend women. She's there. She's there to defend only women being able to compete in women's sports, and people like Leah Thomas. That guy cannot compete in, let's say, women's swimming. Okay, and the Democrats just laid it on. Said whoever the chairman is of that committee, the Republican, called this particular hearing. The Democrats knew they couldn't stop the hearing, so what did they do? They started calling her and everybody who called that hearing so that they can have that proverbial conversation that Joe Resinello was talking about, okay, to be able to talk about these things. They just kept shouting, hate, hate, hate. Here comes the hate. Here comes the hate. Here comes the hate. Joe, I agree with you in an America that was probably before half our lives were over. Like, what I mean by that is probably over 25 years ago, you still had an America where you could have a conversation. Joe, I don't know what the solution is, and it certainly ain't violence.
Well, I'll tell you
Okay,
what, and this is a good
but conversations are gone, it seems, at this point.
Our country doesn't work anymore. Joe, I don't believe in the institution of America anymore because it doesn't work. Because first of all, that hearing is complete bullcrap. What good comes out of it? She could say anything she wants. Nothing comes out of it. The Republicans don't do anything because they're owned. They're on a tight leash by the special interests that basically feed the coffers of the Democrats too. So the whole hearing is just a show. And then you have the other side, who frankly are sick in the head because their constituents are sick. They're sick. We're unmoored. We're unmoored. We've lost our North Star. The system doesn't work. The only thing that there's a small light left is the court. To a degree, it's not perfect, but to a degree, everything else doesn't work. And there's the irony. Even if Donald Trump is to win, what can he possibly do? You have people that can't figure out that there are two genders scientifically proven, genetically, factually proven. People will tell you there's 57 genders. And they're going to vote for the right president? We're sick. The country's sick. And it doesn't work. Adam said it. And I'm not talking about a perfect people. Democracy doesn't work when we have an amoral people. I'm not talking about a perfect people. I'm not talking about a Catholic people. I'm just talking about people that have their wits, that have basics down, like men can't menstruate. And we're going to fix the country. The country's sick because the people are sick. We're going to fix it from the ground up. It's not going to be from the politics down.
But that's why also, Joe, that's why a lot of the time what the left, the mantra has been since people like us and many, 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 many other people have opened their mouth, particularly about transgenderism, is to say, well, why do you care? See, that's their way of trying to shut you up.
Well, what I would say is I care because I have kids. And here's another thing. Even if I didn't, I care about your kids. I see kids when I walk through the streets of New York City and I go there for work. I walk 17 blocks because I can't even go in the subway because it's violent. I walk and I see young kids. They're destroying themselves.
Yeah.
And as a 53-year-old man, I pity them. Not in some sentimental way, as a human. They're destroying themselves. And we're destroying ourselves as a nation. It's evident.
Right.
And it's only going to get worse. And the system doesn't work anymore. I wish it did. Trust me, I wish it did, but
Well,
it
it's like
doesn't.
you. Well, it's like you said when it comes to the Uniparty, when the Republicans, if now we're going to talk about Vivek, but if Republicans start talking seriously about these issues, okay, they're going to get brushed aside to say, well, we're worried more about China, we're worried more about trade, we're worried more about immigration. You want to bring up these are personal matters. No, well, no, actually, it's not. When you tell a 16-year-old kid that they could have a double
Oh,
mastectomy, and without their parents knowing, no, that's a societal problem, pal. That's not just a family
but the thing
problem or a
is, Joe,
private problem.
honestly, like to your point though, they can't do it because the way the system, I know what you're saying, and this is where I've lost hope in that process and why I call it the uniparty. They get it because they know where their bread is buttered. They're not allowed. I remember we just talked to someone about the slaughter of American cities, and he mentioned Barack Obama giving a speech talking about in the South Side of Chicago, talking about fatherlessness. And basically, this gentleman has a PhD from Purdue University, educated guy, listens to the speech, and he says, "Spot on." Then
Right,
here comes Jesse Jackson, who's been in the game a lot longer at the time than Barack Obama, and he basically berates him. Guess what happens? Barack Obama then says nothing. Now, what that said about that subject ever again, that's a real problem. It's a problem
right,
in the white community too, right now, more than ever.
right,
But at the time, 3 out of 10 families had men in it. The statistics speak for themselves. He
right.
addressed it rightly. Jesse Jackson says, can't do that. Guess what
Yeah,
he
Jesse
doesn't
Jackson
do?
turned around and said, I want to cut his nuts off.
So there you go, quote unquote. Thank you for that. Guess what he does? He doesn't say anything. He's a fraud.
Yo, well,
That says to me, you're a fraud. And this is what we can't have. We need men of character. None of them have character. None of them. No character. Zero. You can't build a society with feckless human beings who won't put their neck on the line. Screw the power. Screw it. I have to live with myself. I have to look my kids in the face. And we won't do it because we want the power. We go along to get along. And frankly, we're going along to get along right off the cliff. And that's why our government doesn't work. I don't trust. You think the Republicans, they're not going to get paid. You
right.
need money to run. That goes all of them. Jim Jordan, all of them. Every single one of them.
Well, Joe, you're making a great argument for public financing of campaigns.
That's
I
what
think
has to happen. You
right.
want to return the country back to the people.
That's a big one.
That's number one. Number one. We actually, what's number one is we have to vote right. We have to get back to paper ballots, voting in person, putting IDs on in front of the person. Why do we mail in ballot? What is that?
Right.
Our country's crazy, and people actually think it's legitimate, as in everything. That show where friggin' all of them, Josh Hawley, Kennedy. Okay, let's have a show. You could yell at the person for an hour. What comes of it? Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Nothing. I have no time for it anymore.
Right.
Zero. Now, what I have time for, I'll pray the rosary. I'll fast for the country. More will come out of that than watching this stupid ass show.
Well, let me tell you some of these supposed conservative Christians out there. I like to get a big message to them. Stop idolizing the free market. Stop making an idol out of the free market. Stop only worrying about trade. Okay, start worrying about these moral issues. Okay, because guess what? We're either going to ask God for the ability ourselves to turn this ship and show some backbone and do some of the things that you're describing, Joe Rossinello, or else God's going to right the ship.
Well, that's what's
And
going to happen. It's
well, real
human
quick,
nature.
Joe. But real quick, my warning to them is this: Joe and I have a lot of faults. Okay, I don't know who in this world doesn't. We have our share. Okay, we're out there. We're putting our nuts. Okay, out there on the chopping block. Okay, we have jobs
for 6 years.
right,
6 years.
for 6 years, and we're nothing special. Okay, but at least we have our priorities straight. So when God does decide to change this country around, Hopefully he finds favor with us, that at least we tried to do something. But all of you who continue to think that abortion's not a real issue, that homosexuality is not a real issue, that transgenderism not a real issue, that think it's A-okay that two men can adopt children, or it's A-okay that two women can adopt children, all right? You're going to be on the bad side of that turning.
Joe,
Because you didn't stand up for what's true. You didn't stand up for what's true.
I pray for my family every day. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell all you people, there's 64 people in the chat room. I'll tell you with honesty, I pray that that the Immaculate Heart of Mary, that I keep my family in the heart of the Blessed Mother. And this is not like, oh, God's going to strike the country down with a lightning bolt. We reap what we sow. There's no such thing as karma. We reap what we sow. And we're reaping what we sow now. It's now. Our children are killing themselves. Depression is off the charts. Off the charts in this country. We're the richest country in the world, arguably. Depression's off the charts. Our life expectancy has gone down. Violence is off the charts. We're reaping what we sow. And that's what's going to continue. Well, and we don't want to. And Joe, know what it is? And then we'll go on to Vivek, and I don't want to rant. The heat isn't hot enough yet. COVID wasn't enough. Getting mugged isn't enough. Gasoline, getting gouged at the supermarket isn't enough. Healthcare, bad healthcare isn't enough. What's it going to take?
I was going to say, it makes you wonder what is it going to take?
But it can get worse, because in other parts of the world, we don't know how people live. Most Americans have no idea the suffering that goes on.
Well, they will when they get a bowl of rice, and that's their only meal of the day.
This is why I changed. It's everybody. You know, it's going to be me. It's going to be you. It's going to be every person listening. We're all going to get flushed down the toilet. Those who are listening in Canada, we have a fairly big Canadian audience. 1 in 5 people in the city of Toronto go to food banks. Toronto's a wealthy city in the world. 1 in 5, 20%. Buying a house in the middle class is not within reach in Canada. That was due to 8 years of Justin Trudeau. 8. What makes us immune to that?
There's nothing.
And this is me. It's you and everyone listening. If you're a Democrat, it's you.
Right.
And it's you, the Republican, unless you're in that bucket where you're making big, big money. You see, I'll be honest with you. You're worth $1 billion. You're worth $50 million. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who's in charge of Congress or who controls the Senate. You're above it. But you listening to this show, you're a mailman. You work at UPS. You're a Republican. You're a Democrat. Call yourself a duck. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You're going to get crushed. And we don't see it. We ignore it because we're unmoored.
Well,
we've lost our North Star, Joe, and we've become tribal.
Well, here's what I would hope. I hope 2 things happen. Number one, it's not going to. This is not going to happen. I wish Trump would go on Truth Social and take back what he said about his enemies rotting in hell, because I just think it's bad. I think it's a bad message. I think it's an anti-Christian message. He should take that back. He won't do it, but he should take that back. The other thing is this, Joe. Part of me says, look, it could get a lot worse, and then we're going to pivot to Vivek. Okay, it could get a lot worse. We already know what the Democrats are going to do. They're a party of hard ideologues. Like you always say, there's fecklessness on the Republican side. Maybe we need 8 years of Barack Obama on steroids with a 2/3. Wait, real quick, Joe, real quick. With a 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate. And maybe that'll wake Republicans up to stop voting for the Mitt Romneys of the world.
And maybe They won't because
No,
they
but Joe, maybe they need to suffer, Joe. Then maybe we need to
the thing
suffer.
is, you're going to suffer. And
Well,
so am I and
that's what
my
I mean.
kids, but bad. You see, the problem is the Republicans are in that group. They're rich. So are the Democrats. They're not going to suffer. You see, that's how it works in most of the world. In most parts of the world, we're going to suffer. We, the people. And the reason why people empower these people is because we've become unmoored. We're tribal. Our identification is the party. My identification is I'm a Roman Catholic. My heaven is not here. It's not here. I have no identification with the Republicans or the Democrats, the conservatives, the libertarians, none of them. None of them. I believe in ideas. And that's not how we roll anymore because we've become unmoored. And we empower the people that enslave us. And Joe, we will suffer like to no end. Meat will be $20 a pound. Milk will be $10 a gallon.
I thought it was already $10 a gallon.
It's $5.
Approaching it.
Gas will be in California. Gas is $7 a gallon. You simply won't be able to have a car.
All right. Well, let's talk. Let's pivot. Let's talk about Vivek. There's some, again, I don't know how much credibility to give it. Some speculation that what's on the table is the potential of him backing out of the presidential race, having an open mind to being Trump's VP. A lot of this stuff is just narrative peddling, Joe. But nonetheless, let's play devil's advocate for a second and say that he's willing to do that. What are your thoughts on that? Because look, for a guy who I think says a lot of very good things, all right, there's some people say, well, will Christians vote for a Hindu? Well, if he shares my values, I have no problem voting for him. Okay, we don't believe in the same God, but if we believe and hold the same values, which, again, according to him, seems like he does, okay, at least right now, then I got no problem voting for Vivek, but I don't know if I want to vote for him for vice president because, I'm so back and forth based on a lot of the things that you were just saying about the uniparty and everything else. We do have to remember, in fairness, and I did say a few minutes ago that I would vote for Donald Trump again, and I will if there won't be any alternative on the Democrat side. But we had 4 years of Donald Trump. Let's be real, Joe. A lot of the BS that we had to put up with is because of Donald Trump. All right. In other words, a lot of this, now he gave us the judges we wanted, and I think we need a lot more. All right. And we can get into reasons why. But Donald Trump didn't do a lot of the things he should have for all his bluster. Okay.
He's not the answer. No, there is no answer from.
Let's talk about Vivek though, because a lot of people are gravitating towards him. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think he's ready to be president, and I will vote for Donald Trump. I'm not going to lie. A couple reasons. One, he will give me judges that at least look at the Constitution in a semi-serious manner. Let me just phrase it that
right there. Can I ask you a question based on that? Do you have any hope that with more judges, and we're talking about not just at the Supreme Court level, but spread throughout the judiciary, okay? If Trump was to get that opportunity again and he nominates the same type of judges, do you have a hope that a lot of the things that the left tries to ram down our throats, I use the example of Chloe Cole, all right, who is suing the people that mutilated her, where if we had better judges, then some of those lawsuits against these entities and the individuals that try to push this nonsense might actually gain some traction. You know where I'm going with this.
I do. I think it just buys the country time. Like Trump bought the country maybe 15 years until you get ridiculous activist judges at the Supreme Court level. It just
But at least in the meantime, if a judge was to, let's just say for argument's sake, Joe, I'm going to be hypothetical. Let's say Chloe Cole wins her lawsuit. And now a precedent is established.
No, okay? That's good.
Now, that is a very good thing. That means that you got to be insane to operate on a 16-year-old girl without their parents' consent.
Well, eventually, just to use that as the example, what's going to stop that is there'll be a lawsuit. What's going to stop
that's where I was going.
No, and that's where the malpractice insurance won't be able to cover it. And then what'll wind up happening, it'll be like plastic surgery. You got to pay cash. It's only for the rich. you'll have to pay cash. You want to do that? The doctor's going to basically say, listen, my insurance doesn't cover it. You have to sign all this paperwork, and you got to pay cash.
Right. But in the meantime, that doctor in a case like that would be forced to disclose many things that they're not forced to disclose now.
And
That's where I was going.
that's the only way it's going to stop until then. But that's here and there. It buys us time. How the country gets better. Grassroots. We have to get our North Star back, Joe. We have to get moral again. I'm not saying Catholic. I love you to be Catholic. I'm Catholic, but we live in a pluralist society. That's never going to happen. Let's be real. America has never been Catholic, ever, ever. In fact, Catholics have been persecuted from the very beginning. Read Dan Leroy's book. I did. From the very beginning. We do have to get a North Star. We'll call it that. Where basically we have a common ground. That common ground is this. There is a God and it's not me. How about we just say that? From there, we build families where we get married and we stay married because, again, it's not dogma. It's sociological fact. When you have a mom and a dad in the house raising children, the odds on they don't become Charles Manson is in your favor.
Well, here's my thing, is that Vivek says to somebody recently in a town hall or wherever it was, somewhere on CNN, I guess. He's got a lot of stones going on CNN. He said, somebody asked him about his belief in Hinduism, and he said, but I do share, we have common values. Okay, Joe, I'm going somewhere with this. You say we're a pluralistic society. I had a conversation with an atheist friend of mine, former Catholic. He's an atheist. He's a libertarian. Now, we have a lot of political conversations, and we have a lot of common ground, to be quite frank with you, okay? However, I told him, I said, listen, brother, I said, I know that you're not Catholic anymore, but if you want me to vote for Larry Sharp or one of your libertarian buddies, well, then guess what? We're going to have to find common ground on a lot of these, and guess what? I'm not voting for abortion, and let's take it beyond abortion. I said, we have to agree that men are women, and we'd have to fight as a coalition against those who say differently. Are you going to join me in that? Is that a common value that you as an atheist and I as a Catholic, a believing Christian can have? Is Vivek going to get up there and make sure that everybody knows, and as president of the United States, he won't support anything that contradicts science, logic, reason, the natural law? All right. If you don't,
I know what you're saying, and politics, sadly, is not the game of ideologues. Politics is coalition building. That's number one. No matter what party you have within the Republican Party, in order to win, you have to build a coalition in order to win in the Democratic Party at this time with two-party system. That's factual. That's the first point. The second point is this. All of these disputes are dividing us as a people, and the people in power want that because they're untouched. They're basically loving it. They're loving it. And ultimately, we, the people, are getting flushed down the toilet. And here's when all that's going to end. When your survival is on the line. In Brazil, where a large swath of the population is poor, black and white is not an issue. Know why? Because you're poor.
right.
And you live next to one another. It's not an issue. When we're all poor, we're not going to argue about 57 genders. We're not going to worry about that because we're poor. And the people in power, by the way, COVID, the largest power grab in the history of America, the largest exchange of money taken from regular people given to the elites in the history of America. This is about power. Right. And until we are on that level, you're right. There's going to be that bickering. It's got to come down to survival. If you ask me, people basically have to see and say, my interests are your interests to feed my kids. There's a symbol I'm going to use. Many Catholics are going to cringe, but that's what I do. I'm here to make you cringe. On the Jesuit crest, there's a pot with two wolves eating on each side of it. And what that crest is about, if the wolves aren't fed from the pot, they'll eat you. So you have to feed them. Here's another part of that symbol. The wolves balance each other. If one wolf doesn't lean on the pot, the other wolf can't eat out of it. So they both have to eat out of the pot together. You see, that's where we're at as a people. We're not at that point yet where but in a sense we are. We just don't see it. We continue to bicker. And the differences are real. Listen, I'm Catholic. Vivek wants 6-week abortion. I'm not for that. I want no abortion. None. Zero abortion. With that said, though, we still think we could thrive. I say we can't. I say what's going to happen is we're all going to starve, or our lives are going to be significantly impaired from the way that they are. You don't believe me? Talk to the people in Holland. Talk to the people in France. Talk to the people in Canada, where green energy economics have devastated them. Regular people, they can't afford to heat their house. When we get to that point, the bickering ends. The bickering will end. Eyes will start to wake up. And then we know who the enemy is. And frankly, it's not your neighbor, because they're starving too. And that's where we have to get to.
Well, my enemy are those that made me their enemy. And what I mean by that very simply is this. Joe Resinello, I remember a time when if you were a Democrat or Bill Clinton, for as much as I dislike Bill Clinton, tried to appeal to all Americans, okay? Now, many people didn't vote for him because they don't agree with his policies. Barack Obama early on, okay, tried to appeal to all Americans. Hillary Clinton effing called us deplorable. Do you see the difference? Joe Biden puts us on terrorist watch list. He sicks Merrick Garland, his attorney general, on men who pray in front of abortion clinics protecting their children, okay, from being attacked by one of the insane people that work at Planned Parenthood, or a school or a father going up in front of a school board. Joe, they've made us their enemies, and they've said it, both in words and actions. When is the last time you ever heard a presidential candidate call those who would support their opponent deplorable? Do you want my vote, Hillary? Maybe you should try to be a little bit more like your husband. You know, he was able to get people's votes from the other side. You just called anybody who's inclined to vote for Donald Trump a deplorable person. That's what we're dealing with, Joe. My point is this. I don't want enemies, but they've made us their enemies simply because we don't agree with them.
I understand, but again, the people like Hillary Clinton, and I'll use the example, Mitt Romney, they're untouched. Joe, in places like, I'll pick a place.
No, Joe, I know, I understand. I want to come back to it. I'm sorry for 1 second. Okay. My point is that they attack half the country.
I get it. And listen, I don't agree with their constituents. Let's be honest. Again, we agree to disagree. I don't think, though, because the country doesn't work anymore, people have to come to the conclusion that the very people that you think are on your side, like you're a Democrat and you voted for Joe Biden, you actually think he's on your side? You're a mailman. You drive for UPS. You're a teacher. You actually think Joe Biden is on your side? A
lot of people do. I think.
And that's what has to change. You see, now we have a coalition. We can agree to disagree on some things. But what people have to see is, do you actually think that Nikki Haley is going to do a damn thing for you if you're a Republican?
Nope.
A single thing. And when people start to see that the people that supposedly represent us don't, then we have something. And now we can bargain. I remember the movie Gandhi. Gandhi had no leverage, but he had all the leverage in the world. They thought they were going to buy him off. They were like, the English were like, bring him to the table. We'll throw him a crumb and he'll go away. They tried to throw him a crumb. He looked them square in the face because he did have all the leverage, because he had all the people, different religions. And he looked them square in the face and he said, "You will leave." And guess what happened? They did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has to happen. We have to basically say, "You will leave," because
But
you
you
have
bring up
no power.
But you bring up Mahatma Gandhi, but Mahatma Gandhi did something that kind of was like underlying what we were saying. But the man did go through suffering. He had to go to prison.
He
In other
went
words,
and he died. And he died.
right.
Ultimately, he died.
Ultimately,
But you know something? This is what needs to be done. Not dying. I don't want to die. I got
no.
to take care of kids. But my point is this: I don't have the luxury to die. But the thing is, we have to come to that. The people have control. When we come to that, they will leave. And I'll be honest with you, not only will they leave, they'll be terrified. All of them. They'll be terrified. But now they're playing us, if you ask me. Oh, let them bicker, those peasants. Let them fight over crumbs, those idiots. No. We have to basically say, listen, we're the two wolves on the edges of the pot. My survival is contingent upon your survival. And we have to look them square in the face and say, I know who you are. I know who you are. And you're not one of me. And you're not for him either. When that happens, they will leave.
Well, let's end it with this. Joe Resinello at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you see in this video on social media, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble in particular, Facebook, particularly Rumble and Twitter, please share it. Please share it with your friends. If you like the conversation, hit the button. If you like it, subscribe to us. Joe Resinello, I will say this, and then I think it's a hopeful note. Again, I understand, because I agree with you, that I think that there's going to need to be divine intervention on one level or another. But I will say this as far as in the temporal realm. Elon Musk taking over Twitter, all right, and changing the name to X for $50 billion. I think that that's a start of something, for the simple reason that people, normal people, a lot of Democrats, Joe, that are on X, not just Republicans, not just conservatives, okay? Normal people go on there and feel like that big media, big tech is not silencing them, and they actually can say something, just like a lot of the good people that are in our chat room right now. Nobody's preventing them from saying what they want to say. Certainly we're not, okay? My point is that I think that's a hopeful sign, because that can actually, because it's an open forum, because it's essentially unregulated, meaning that there are certain lines you can't cross, but for the most part, you could say what you want on X and Rumble in particular, okay? And I think that's going to be very helpful, because the first catalyst, Joe, to change, to actually change things, okay? The first catalyst is actually going to be this. Not the gun, not the bat, not the crowbar, not the bricks, okay? Not the hate that gets spewed on us by people like Hillary Clinton. It's us opening our mouths and doing exactly what you said. Joe, you got 30 seconds for a final word.
We have to maintain our moral integrity. They want us to be violent. They want it. That is our advantage. We have to speak the truth fearlessly. We have to live the truth. We have to show people by our lives the North Star. There is a North Star, and it's God. And when we do that, our lives will get ordered. Eyes will open. Families will get stronger. The communities will get stronger. Nations will get stronger. You could say I'm lying. Call me what you want. But look at how I live and the product of my life. And when people do that and they see that, we'll become the nation on the hill again. But that begins with one person at a time. One person at a time. Words are cheap. People have to see it. And that begins with me. That begins with you, Joe. And that begins with everyone who's listening. There's 70 people in the chat. You can do that too.
No,
and when
absolutely.
we do that, we change the country.
Joe, I couldn't help but think, and I just added, please don't get mad at me. I couldn't help but think, though, but taking a sledgehammer to that tampon machine in the men's room in public parks, I don't think that that's a bad idea as long as nobody gets hurt. Thank you for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Like I said, we're going to be here Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, unless something really is an emergency. We're going to be here. Joe and I are back in action as far as this is concerned. We also have all of our interviews. Joe and I are very proud of our interviews that we have. They're all over Facebook, Rumble, X, and YouTube. YouTube and Facebook will probably take them down at some point, but X and Rumble, we'd ask you to look at them, especially if you like Catholic conversations or religious conversations in general. Go look at the different interviews we have, because even if you're not Catholic, you probably would find them interesting. And if you do, please share those with your friends also. So we want to thank you once again for joining us. Tell your friends about us. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.